Good morning, Bishop Kevin.
Good morning. Glad to be with you.
I was revisiting your story of starting a church from scratch with no team, no money, and just a strong vision, which is rare. How often do you get asked, how did you even pull that off?
Oh my goodness. On a daily basis, that is one of the top questions because how do you take nothing and turn it into something in a place where the something you want to turn it into typically turns into nothing? How do you step into an environment? It's going to take everything we're going to talk about. It's going to take faith. It's going to take grit. It's going to take leadership, persistence, relentless determination to make it to your goal. And so I'm excited to talk about it.
Sounds fascinating. Can't wait to explore that. Let's dive in.
Let's do it.
The following is a conversation with Bishop Kevin Foreman, founder of Harvest Church, community leader, and influential voice in faith and performance. This is Pre-Zero Sports Talk podcast, and I'm your host, Sid Bensala. Today, we explore the power of grit, faith, and leadership, how coaching the whole person can foster meaningful change in lives, teams, and communities. To support our show, please check the episode description. Bishop Kevin, welcome to the Pre-Zero Sport Talk, and I'm honored to have you here.
Oh, listen, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be with you, excited about our conversation, and excited about the value it's going to add to people's lives.
Your journey from Memphis's Orange Mound to being honored with your own day in Denver and Aurora is inspiring. Let's start right there. When was the moment you first felt called to lead, not just in the church, but in life?
You know what? I have to be honest. It was always something that was intrinsically in me. The joke is I came out of my mother's room with a Bible and a briefcase, is the joke that my family likes to say. It was always something in me that knew I was different, that knew I wasn't the norm, that knew that I just had an affinity towards things that others in my peer group didn't necessarily have that affinity towards. And so to me, there were always these crumbs, if you will, that would, make this larger loaf in life. And so it really has been since a kid. As a kid, I would sit and I would watch preaching and I would develop business plans. Like what 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old is talking business and negotiating deals and that type of a thing, at that level. And so it just was this combination of the two that I just knew was intrinsically in me. And I think everybody knows when something is different about them. Even if they can't put their finger on it, they know I'm not the norm.
What was growing up in Memphis like for you?
Oh, great question. Memphis, so Orange Mound is this community within Memphis that years and years ago, post the slavery and those that were enslaved here in America, it was one of the most productive, most economically impactful areas. They used to call it in America, used to have several of what they were called these Black Wall Streets. It was one of those areas. As true with many of those communities, just as a result of policy and a variety of different things here in America, the community turned. And so growing up, I was surrounded by an amazing mom, my amazing support system, but I also saw a lot of crazy stuff as a kid. You saw gangs, you saw drugs, you saw violence, you saw those types of things that you experienced that just comes with that type of an environment. And so I was literally in an environment, but I couldn't become the environment I was in.
Right. How did that environment, specifically in Memphis, shape the kind of leader you've become today, Bishop Kevin?
It did. I mentioned my mother, and I mentioned, one of the great things she did was she allowed me to be free. You talk about grit. She allowed me. I have to be very honest with you. I was a bad boy. When I say bad, I don't mean that in a good way. I mean, I was a bad kid.
Bad and naughty.
Yes, naughty. Exactly. I would challenge systems. I would challenge leadership. And actually, there was a leader in me. I didn't know what it was. I would challenge things. I would challenge structures, challenge systems. And at the same time, I knew how to get close to those who were in leadership roles or leadership capacities. It was just really interesting combination. And so, it shaped me because it taught me that if I could make it in Memphis, I can make it anywhere. You have to learn how to navigate through the different complexities of the community. I had a survival mentality in the sense of you do what you have to do to win and succeed. I saw in my home, I saw my mother, my stepfather, he unfortunately was a womanizer and an abuser. So I saw that growing up. So I had to see these examples of men that I would not emulate. So I had to craft and be the architect of the man that I am. And it shaped me because it helped me to realize that you don't have to become the environment you're in. Just because you beheld it doesn't mean you have to become it.
Yeah, yeah. During our intro chat, you told me that you started the sports later than most. How did that shape your sense of discipline?
Oh my goodness. It was amazing because I have to be honest. So my father was in football and very athletic, and he was he was very into that, very supportive of that when I would meet him later in life. And I, on the other hand, again, I was Bible and briefcase. So I was, when he was like, come on, let's go run and do this. Come on, let's go do this. Come on, let's do that. I had a resistance to it almost, but I remember eventually giving in and said, okay, great. I want to play. I want to get into football. And because I'd done band, did music, I was very successful with that. And then the business stuff, I was very successful with that, heavily involved in church. And so when I finally got involved, it was amazing because for the first time, one of the first times, it gave me a discipline and a structure and a routine and dealing with coaches who were not the nicest to deal with. They didn't care about my feelings. They didn't care about the fact that I didn't want to run the route. They didn't care about the fact that we'd been out there for 2 hours. They didn't care about what I had to do after practice. It taught me that you have to do what you have to do. And I think that was one of the greatest lessons in recognizing that, the sports provide so much more than just the athletic aspect. It's that discipline. It's that structure. It is that running the play. I was so used to creating my own world, and now I've got to run the play somebody else is calling. And if I didn't run the play, I had a coach. He had a red hat he always wore. He would throw that hat down, and he'd holler some expletive and say, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I remember that happening a few times, and I said, I do not want that response again. So I better get that blue 22 together. I better hit that 2-hole right.
Yeah, yeah. And on that, if leadership is performance, what does the training look like for you today?
Oh, goodness. I think, when you talk about performance, everything is about performance. Everybody's always asking the question, what's in it for me, which is performative in nature. And often we look at that as a negative thing, but I think what it does is it causes us all to strive to say, is this the best that I can produce? Is this the best that I can do? Is this the best that I can be? And I think leadership of anything starts with leadership of self. If you can't lead you're not going to be very effective at leading people because you're going to be in a constant fight with yourself. And so I think when you talk about performance, it's how do I lead myself on a daily basis? How do I lead? Yes, I've led an organization to great success, businesses to great success. But if I can't lead me, the greatest fight I will have will be me. I like to say it this way. Your greatest enemy will be your inner me. And so if you can conquer you can perform in any other area of life and do so, pretty efficaciously also.
Yeah. At 21, you built a major real estate finance brokerage. Then it all collapsed. What did that teach you about performance and resilience?
That coach, what are you doing? You better keep going. Let me tell you. It taught me, I saw him throwing that hat down like, you better make it happen. It taught me. So real estate finance I like that side of the business. That's different. That's the mortgage side and the finance side. That's very different than the, going for homes and looking at homes and walking through 50 houses and that kind of deal. I got involved in that business through actually a pastor that I had known. And I was in marketing at the time for another company and got involved to that business. And long story short, by 21, we built Denver's largest Black African-American owned real estate finance brokerage in the city. And doing that, as you said, it just collapsed over the weekend. And it wasn't just our business, it's the entire industry. I literally was watching it on TV collapse in front of my face. It's the craziest experience to ever have. Waiting for Monday to come, knowing that when Monday hits, everything's going to be different, and it was. And I had to take those same lessons. It makes me think about. There was a play when I was in high school playing football. I was fullback, and that same play, that blue 22, that right hole that I needed to get that to. And I remember it was so cold. It was a blizzard. It was freezing. It was like, why are we even playing this game? Nobody's out. You can barely see. But I remember we had to do what we had to do. And giving up was not an option. Not performing wasn't an option. I remember got the ball, carrying the ball, and I get hit. Pop. And when I get hit, that ball comes out. There's a scramble for it and what have you. And I remember in that moment, the feeling that it created. And that feeling was, don't fumble. Don't let the pressure of your external circumstances or your external situation make you lose grip of what you have. That principle was the same thing I used when it came to that. Watching the business collapse, watching the industry collapse, I literally didn't drop the ball. So my statement became, what's next? We don't have time to stay stuck in negative emotions. Don't have time to stay stuck in negative feelings. What's next? How are you going to pivot from here? Don't panic, pivot. And I think about that play. And it's so funny. Out of all the things I've done, I still remember that play. I still remember the high school. I still remember the weather. I still remember the yellow bus driving. I remember all of that. Because for me, it's those pivotal moments where you look back and say, here I panicked, here I panicked, here I panicked. Those things concretize the lessons. And I literally remember saying to myself, don't panic, pivot. What are you going to do next? And the bounce back was way bigger than the setback.
Yes. And on that, Bishop Kevin, you launched Harvest Church from nothing, basically. No resources, nothing. How did you do that?
You know what? Same lessons.
So you had a vision. Sorry to cut you. You had the vision. No resources, absolutely nothing.
Can I go even
How
deeper?
did you pull that off?
So the vision wasn't even mine. To be honest with you, it was a divine thing. It was, I knew eventually that I would do something like that. And for those unfamiliar, so bishop is simply in our world of non-denominational church, just a pastor to pastors. They call me the people's bishop because I love people. That's why our organization is people all across America, all around the world who are connected. We're a hybrid church and building Zendo Line. And I honestly, if I'm honest with you, I didn't want to do that at the time. I was looking at what other pivots do I have? But it was the divine assignment. It was the divine calling. And the way I like to tell the story is sometimes, you'll be set up in life to where you're backed into a corner and you can pick any option, but you only have one option available. And so I looked at it in many ways. I tried a bunch of different entrepreneurial at heart, tried a bunch of different entrepreneurial journeys. And it just became very clear to me that the one door that was open was this door of planting this church. And then you look at the statistics. You're 46 out of 50 for lowest church attendance in the nation. There's not a lot of ethnic nor racial diversity in Denver. It is literally called the church planter's graveyard. So who wants to plant a church in the place they call the church planter's graveyard? Because so many out of the 1,700 pastors in America that quit every month, half of that is from Denver West in the States. And so it simply became this conviction that I have to pursue this and don't drop the ball. And so literally, that's exactly what I did. I watched that business collapse, and let's say, maybe 6 to 8 months after that, I had this conviction that I've got to start a church. And the vision came from some of the things that I looked at in church and said, well, that could be different, that could be different, that could be different. Sometimes what aggravates you is your assignment. And sometimes the things that burden you and bother you, these are the areas that you're going to be a blessing in. And so literally from there, we started, and the vision was, we didn't call it that at the time, but essentially there was one church and global locations. And so the goal was to reach as many people in as many places as we possibly can. And we started that journey, and from there it evolved into a Bible college, it evolved into a foundation, a whole leadership network where we train and develop leaders and pastors. And all of that really started from this sense that if I'm going to do it, I need to be different than what's out there. We
Yeah.
don't need a replication of what's already there. There's got to be something different about what we do.
And from the get-go, was it easy to convince the community to follow you, to follow your vision?
Not at all. So I got music is how I got into ministry originally. So I was a drummer, and as I
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, and so I was known for music, and there was no church I couldn't go into, regardless of the background, regardless of the ethnic composition of that church. There was no church I couldn't go into, and everybody didn't know who I was. There's this music artist we have called Kirk Franklin, and he's evolved through the years. But Kirk, he was the big name in gospel, still is today, gospel music. And so that's what they call me. They call me Denver's Kirk Franklin. And so I was involved very heavily in gospel music. In fact, they put me, I'm looking at it right there, they put me in the Colorado Gospel Music Hall of Fame. So that was what everybody knew me as. And I had to really use those same principles, that grit, to run another play. I had to really pivot and say, okay, this is what I've been known as. Now we've got to make that change. And so while there was not necessarily any resistance, initially, there were certainly those who said, well, so why are you making this switch? Why are you making this change? Why are you wanting to do something different? And I had to be honest, it was simply because I believed that I had an assignment that I had to see through. And that's where the faith component comes in, that you have to believe in the thing that you can't see, even though the thing you can see is more real to you than what you can see.
Yeah, yeah. And on that, what made you think we can do this differently?
Realizing that that's what my whole life had been, doing it different. From growing up, I had to do it different. I couldn't be like a lot of the other young men and men that I saw, and growing up in school. I did it different. I moved different. I was probably the only elementary student that was, while everybody else was at recess, I was volunteering to stay in to grade the papers of my peers. I was different. And so recognizing I'd always been different, to me, it was easy to desire to do it different. I just had to look at what is it that I believed needed to change, needed to be different so that lives could be impacted. Because ultimately, everything we do is people. I don't care what business you're in, if you're a podcaster, you're a coach, you're a pastor, you're a business person. Ultimately, everything deals with people. Products deal with people, services deal with people. And so to me, it was about how can we make this more impactful for people so that it's not out of touch and out of reach. And so I'd always been different. So to me, different was my default.
I'm very familiar in my industry, which is the sport industry, when it comes to coaching the whole person. In your case, what does coaching the whole person look like in your ministry?
Oh, goodness. That's such a powerful question, because that's one of those difference makers, is that we don't just speak to the spiritual components of people. We speak to every single aspect. So case in point, I wanted to get healthy because we were doing 2 Sunday morning services and then a weekly Bible study, and I was traveling. And a lot of times you develop really bad habits. You eat really late, you eat very poorly, and the discipline, basically you'd go to the gym kind of, once every whenever type of a thing. And I knew I wanted to do differently. And so we began this movement. We called it Fit Harvest. I literally lost the weight. It was all natural. And I shed the fat. But I said, this can't just be a diet. This can't be a fad. This has to be a lifestyle. And so that's now totally integrated in how we do church. So it's from the financial life, the fitness life, the faith aspect, the family aspect, the whole person. So I approach leadership that way because, you can speak to a person about performing in one area, but often it's this other area that's seemingly unrelated that really needs the coaching, that really needs the impact. I think about, I went in for a massage one time and I said, I said, I'm having some pain, not pain, but a little tension right here. The masseuse began working over here. I said, no. It's over here. This is where the issue is. And the masseuse said, well, but the source of that is actually over here. And if I don't go deal with the source, which is over here, you're still going to have the same tension over here. To me, that's the philosophy when you talk about coaching the entirety of the person. It's not just about how a person performs. So let's use sports. It's not just how they perform on the field, but let's deal with these other aspects. How are they eating? What's their family life? What are their goals? What are their desires? It has to be a 360 approach, because other than that, you become an individual who's really good at performing in the moment, but you cannot do it outside of that moment because you don't have the discipline, you don't have the mentality, you don't have the grit, the wherewithal to really operate like that on a daily basis. And all of those lessons go back to childhood. They go back to, again, I keep bringing that coach up, throwing his hat down, getting frustrated. It goes back to those long bus rides and goes back to having to wear something that was different than what I was accustomed to and used to, forcing myself to be in uncomfortable situations because it created growth. All of that really goes together. So we pastor that way. I lead that way. I do not just want people who are spiritually mature, but lacking in other areas.
Right. When you started your ministry, you were hesitant to go digital. Yet now you're everywhere. What changed your mind?
Oh my goodness! And when I say hesitant, very hesitant.
You're allergic
Oh,
to.
listen, I just said, do not do it. I mean, turn the streaming off. Look like it was a thing. And here's what's funny about it. We knew we were one of the very first churches to begin streaming. Back when streaming was extremely expensive to do, like you had to buy the big encoding computers, and you had to have all the, it was not an inexpensive thing to do, and the technology was relatively new. So there were really only two big companies that you could use in the U.S. that could do the streaming for you, and one of them was just astronomically priced, and the other one was really more of a startup, and so we were able to work with them. So we had done that always. But when it came to really stepping out to other things, YouTube and podcasts and all of that, I was against it because I came from a traditional TV background. I did a lot of TV and TV networks. And so the whole goal was you need your own. It needs to be white label. It needs to be private. It needs to be just us four, no more, an exclusive type of approach. And then the world changed. And so it was this really interesting tension to where I knew that we needed to do it and we do it. But then on the flip side, there was this tension of like, yeah, but I'm not going to do YouTube though. And I'm not going to release this. And, what really happened one day is I was listening to a podcast, and the podcast literally quoted this scripture that says this: "Give and it shall be given unto you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over." And here was the line: "shall men pour into your bosom." Now, the concept was that when you give, you'll receive. When you release, you'll see increase. But I read that different one day. Given it shall be given unto you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, shall men pour in. In other words, I said, all of this that I've been hesitant to do, I'm keeping this locked up, and it's a kept secret. Let me just give it away, just sow it into the lives of people. And so that began expanding our YouTube reach, that began our social media reach, and we've seen, literally hundreds of thousands that are connected with us on all the different platforms now, and that's growing at an astronomical rate every day. The concept was, though, just release it. And it was so simple, but that's why I was hesitant. I was hesitant because the environment that I was from and in was like, no, you can't do it that way. And then I realized, oh my goodness, if we don't do it that way, what are we doing? You're gonna go extinct, because it doesn't matter if you have something great if nobody knows about it.
Yeah. And how do you stay grounded with over 700,000 followers watching?
Oh my goodness. I do not, this is the truth. I don't believe the hype. And what I mean by that is, it is easy to think, and the business we talked about taught me this lesson, because that Friday I left the office thinking, we have built this is amazing. And it wasn't an arrogance. It wasn't a pride. It was a joy and accomplishment. That Saturday, I'm flipping on the TV and I'm seeing that industry collapse, waiting what's going to happen Monday. And by Monday, the business I built by that Friday was a very different business. And it wasn't just for us, it was for everybody. So that taught me, celebrate the successes, but keep it moving. Keep your edge sharp. Don't believe the hype. They may celebrate you on Monday, and by Tuesday, that might not be the same. So every day, spend it and treat it as if this might be your last day to do what you do. So give it your all. And so for me, I'm always celebrating what we've done, but always reaching for more. And truthfully, that's always been a substratum of my personality. But again, going back to sports, great, you won the last game. There's another game coming up. There's another game coming up. So you can't go out and celebrate and all of that. Right. Okay. You won on Sunday. Great. Well, guess what? Next Sunday, there's a game. You won on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Guess what? Friday, there's a game, or what have you, depending on the sport. That mentality, I was able to extract it and say, yep, we won this game, but there's another one coming up. So I literally view life like that. I won that game. There's another one coming up. So don't believe the hype. Don't think that you're don't get arrogant. Don't get prideful. Celebrate your success. Celebrate what you've done, but get right back in the car and keep it moving.
Yeah. Well, it's quite evident that when we talk about resilience and we talk about grit, how do you teach that if you don't fail? If you don't try and fail, get up again and try again, and you will fail again.
Yep. You know what?
And I feel like we don't teach the youngsters in today's reality, in this digital world, which is not their fault. We don't teach them that failure is okay, as long as you know why you failed. You know the answer why you failed. Try again, never give up. And if you don't do that, if you don't instill these values from the get-go when they are 10, 11, 12 years old, how do you teach grit and resilience?
That's just it. Failure is it. And I think one of the best things every parent, every coach, every leader could do for anybody, but especially a young person, is allow them the freedom to fail. That's one of the things. When I said my mom was, she let me be free. It was one of the greatest things she did, is she let me be free, and I would fail, and then I would go like an autopsy. I would go inspect that failure. Where did I mess up? How can I do it different? How can I change? And then I developed this thing where I don't fear failure. In fact, failure is the number one ingredient in my success. I think it was Thomas Edison that said it like this: I haven't failed. I just found 10,000 ways that won't work. And I think taking on that approach, that grit of failure is not the end. Failure is fuel. Failure helps me move forward. And then I become immune to it. It's like chickenpox. I'm immune to feeling bad because I failed. And I agree with you. I think a lot of today's culture is win, 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 win. Because in social media world, nobody posts their failures. Nobody posts their practice footage.
You're absolutely right.
Nobody posts their practice footage. They only post their highlight reel.
You see happiness, you see laughter, but it's like social media is becoming like kind of showing you this inhumane facade, and we are human. We have good days, bad days, we happy, we sad, we are in a good mood, we are in a bad mood.
Yep. So true.
Yeah.
So true. And the way I view that is this. So it creates this false belief that if I didn't have a win, something's wrong. Or if I'm not happy, something's wrong. And to your point, all of that's part of life. And I think deconstructing what social media has created is one of the best things that any coach, any leader, any person could do, is recognize failures are part of my success. I look at it like this, like a cake. I'm not, full disclosure, I am not that great of a baker or a chef. I eat out a lot. Healthy, but I eat out a lot. And so in that, though, I know enough to know this. Cake mix, composing a cake, the oil by itself, just drinking it, not that good. The eggs by themselves raw, some people are into that. I get it. To me personally, not that good.
Not really.
Right. The flour by itself, not that good.
Forget it.
The sugar by itself, not that good to me. The vanilla by itself, a little bitter. But when you put all of those ingredients together, it makes something beautiful. That's the way I view failure. These individual
I like your example.
Together may not be great, but put all of that together, and it's amazing.
Love it. Love it. How do you think faith leaders can use innovation responsibly online?
Oh my goodness. taking the message everywhere to everybody. I love the use of your word responsibly, because I think one of the things you have to do as a leader is recognize who you're speaking to. We reach a lot of what we call unchurched and dechurched people. So unchurched people are people who have never been in church, any type of church background. Dechurched people are people who were, but for whatever reason, disconnected or what have you. I recognize that's my audience. So knowing that, I am cognizant of what I say, what I speak, how I present it, how I package it, because we want to make sure that when we throw that net out there, we're catching as many fish, so to speak, as you can. And I think responsibly is recognizing who your audience is. And I want to be very transparent about this and leading with love. Everybody's got a different assignment for who they're supposed to reach. But I think if you're going to be a leader, you can be strong. You can hold your convictions. You can do all of that. But leading with love, I think, is important, because we live in a world that's full of so much hate, full of so much condemnation, full of so much negativity. And when you are able to step on the scene and be something very different that people aren't hearing, it opens people up. I think about the fact that that coach, when he threw his hat down and he did all of that, you want to know why I still remember him, is because I knew that the only reason he was doing that is because he cared. He didn't throw his hat down just because he was mad at me or mad at the team. He cared. And there's an old saying that says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think when you talk about being not just a faith leader, but any type of leader, you got to lead with love. That doesn't mean you have to be soft. That doesn't mean you have to be, you have to water down your message. It just means be cognizant of the fact that at the end of the day, everybody in the world is looking for love, is looking for safety, is looking for belonging, which is why I think sports are so powerful, because really what it is more than anything else, yes, there's the athletic piece, there's all of that, but it's belonging. It's a belonging. It's especially being a part of a team. It's a belonging. It is this desire to create community within this shared, sport, or this shared activity or what have you. And so I think the responsible piece is the most powerful piece of that question. Be mindful of who you're talking to.
Interesting. Because every time you bring back your coach and slamming his hat on the table from a leadership standpoint or leadership style, I think your coach, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, his style when it comes to leadership was accountability mixed with empathy.
Yeah, exactly. And you want to know what? And that impression from him and my mother and my teachers and so many others, that's what I got.
Yeah. Because when you say love, leading with love, that means you care and you have to care, and that's somehow it's empathy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just an understanding. You said it earlier. We're humans. And
yes,
and we're not machines, and we're not robots. No. And I'll be honest, as much as I try to be a machine and a robot sometimes, just because it would make what I do so much easier. There's a funny saying that, when you think of church, people think of, a shepherd and sheep. That's the imagery that's used throughout the scriptures. But sheep bite. And so, there's a lot of bloody shepherds, a lot of bloody leaders where you got to lead and bleed at the same time. And I think as much as you can want to be robotic and what have you, we are still human beings. And it doesn't take from your leadership or your strength or your wisdom or your strategy or your know-how or your skill to just be a human and have some level of empathy. Now, you got to do what you got to do. You got to make the changes you have to make. Business is business. Winning is winning. Results are results. But at the same time, you can still do so through the framework of being a human. And that's why that experience with that coach, that's why out of all the other coaches we had, I remember him. I remember him because when he got mad, he got the maddest. But when it was time for a human moment, he was the most human. I remember him
Yeah.
because he was a perfect example of what all of us are, flawed people moving forward.
Yeah. You've consulted on legislation and worked with local governments. What got you into civic leadership?
Oh my goodness. I wanted to change the lives of people at the policy level. And so, all the way down from the last presidential administration, President Biden, down to the Senate level, the congressional level, the city level or the municipal level, and and beyond. I wanted I wanted to change policy. I wanted to change lives. And so literally I began to say, there's two types of ways you can bring change when it comes to civic leadership. You can be a protester, and nothing against that. Or you can sit in the rooms with the people who are making the policy and many of those that are being protested, and rightfully so. And you can help change the policy. I found that I was much more effective sitting in the rooms with the people who make the policy. And so often they would send me bills to redline and say, what do you think about this? How do you feel about this? In 2020, in America, you had protests that were going on because of the death of George Floyd. And
George Floyd, yeah.
Yeah. And so that was, as a Black man, I could relate to that in so many ways. And so, I remember I lived in downtown Denver at the time, and I heard the protests going on. I could see them outside of my window because the Capitol wasn't too far, City Hall wasn't too far, so I could hear it. And I remember saying, I picked up the phone. It was a Friday. I picked up my phone, and I made one phone call to a state representative, and I said, we have to do something. I said, I'm not a protesting type. I have no problem doing it, but we got to do something. Long story short, he said, Bishop, I've got something I've been working on because of your call. Let me see what I can do. You fast forward a week and a half. Colorado, with only 4% Black African American, had the nation's first police reform and accountability legislation that was signed into law to make the necessary steps to change the policy so that things like that didn't happen. And so I think when I began to see results and impacting those who sit in seats of power, it became a much more attractive way for me in order to change the lives of people on a granular level, whether it was elected officials. And full disclosure, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I'm an independent, because people want to know, what's his lean, what's his slant? My slant is people. I want to see the lives of people impacted and changed. And so I refuse to get pulled into the partisan nature of it. Mm-hmm. I refuse to get pulled into the, well, you're a Christian, so you should be this. No, I don't give into that.
Yeah. And is it easy to stay independent?
It is for me because, I'll be honest with you. It is for me because I don't have faith in either side. my trust is not in either side. I think that everybody is going to self-serve. Clearly. Knowing that reality about humanity, it becomes who is transactionally most beneficial to people, period. And so for me, it's very easy to stay independent.
Is the community, your party is a community.
Yeah, that's what I care about. It's the people. Yeah. I don't care about sitting on your platform. I don't care about being one of your endorsers. I get asked to endorse everybody and everything for everything. If you saw the list of, we want Bishop Foreman's endorsement, we want Bishop Foreman's endorsement. And I have very candid conversations. In the last mayoral election in Denver, which is the capital city of Colorado, they all sought there was a runoff, and they both sought my endorsement. And I remember one of the candidates called me. It was a Wednesday night after Bible study I think he called during Bible study, and I texted him back and said, I'm in Bible study. And he said, well, we can just talk tonight. We were speaking at 10:30 and 11 o'clock at night about my endorsement. And I said to him, the first thing I like about you is that it's almost 11 o'clock and we're on the phone. I said, this is the kind of leadership we need, because you didn't pull this, oh, well, let's talk tomorrow during business hours. I said, we need leaders who will lead, and leadership isn't always convenient. And so
absolutely.
To me, it's very easy to stay independent because I refuse to get pulled into either direction. People want you to take a side, and here's my saying, I don't take sides, I take over.
And while you're independent and you sit in the room with the decision makers, with the politicians, how do you approach leading in a public systems without losing your spiritual voice?
Oh, so good. It's the spiritual voice that leads from the public system. I am unapologetic who I am and what I believe. I also understand everybody else doesn't have to believe that way. And so they don't have to have the same convictions. They don't have to have the same beliefs that I do, but here's what we do have
I mean,
to do.
yeah, just to add, the reason I'm asking you this question, because where I am, I see that politicians, they lost completely touch with faith, with, it doesn't matter which religion, you know. And the minute there is this topics, there is this subject about faith, about especially the youngsters, they keep asking questions about who made all this, where this all come from, and stuff like that. And we try to avoid the answers, which is okay, you know. But then you telling me you sit in the room with all these politicians, right, left, it doesn't matter from which party they are. And correct me if I'm wrong, and I think most of them, they don't care about the spiritual values and faith, and which is the cornerstone of keeping the community together at the end of the day. Because sport as a tool, church or places of worship as a destination, these two things keep the community together.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know how you do it too, without losing your spiritual voice. That was the
the question. Yeah. I think that's just it. The voice, I don't silence the voice to make anybody else feel comfortable, but I also don't use my voice to condemn anybody else. And so I can be very clear about the fact you got a different shirt on. Now we got a little matchy today. We get a little match in there. I have on this cream colored shirt. This is my shirt. This is what I'm wearing. This is it. You got a different shirt. I can articulate the fact that this is my shirt. This is what I want. This is what I believe. This is the benefits of it. While at the same time not saying, and you're wrong because you got on that shirt. It's got the floral patterns in it. I don't have to condemn. And I think therein lay, I can be very specific about what I believe and about why I believe and the benefits of that, and very deliberate about that. And I am. I mean, anybody that's ever watched a message from Bishop Foreman knows, okay, he believes what he's talking about and he's going to back it up. And he's going to show you the benefits of it. Like, that's one of the things that used to bother me in church. I was like, it's a bunch of talk, but like, how does that answer this? And how does that answer this? And how does that answer this? Like, feeling good is great, but I want to give me some facts, give me some knowledge, give me information, not just motivation and inspiration. So I leave that way. And I can do that and sit in those rooms. And I can be honest with you, I think for many people, they are privately people of faith, but sometimes they don't know how to publicly articulate that. And I think that's a nuance for every person. I know for the rooms that I sit in, it drives it. I pray, one of the senators who got elected the week of his election, he was the mayor who had given me Bishop Foreman Day in Denver. And then he became, he was mayor, and then he was governor for a while, and then he ran for Senate. And what I discovered, he literally said, all right, Bishop Foreman, we're not going another further until you pray and tell me what God's saying. These are the conversations that we would have.
Nice.
I literally preached his installation or the week of his the election. We did that because we knew that he was a person that valued that, and that's with every politician. They don't set the tone for me. I set the tone for them. And so that's how I do it.
And any policy or community win that sticks with you as deeply personal? Or?
Several. I think one of the very fundamental ones that I think, from a policy standpoint, that I think is always super important to me is how we are empowering those who have been marginalized and how we're empowering those that have been disenfranchised. It is easy in a culture where everybody's succeeding and winning to overlook those that are, in different places in their journey. And so any policy that is going to help empower those people, it's not enough to just give things. You got to give back to this whole coaching the whole person. That's one of the approaches that I take, and we're seeing a lot of that implemented in Denver. And as we moved our headquarters to Atlanta, Georgia now, so we'll do the same type of integration and investment in those political arenas here. But it's not enough to just throw money at a problem. Politicians love saying, we allocated this money, here's some money. Well, if money fixed it all, then we'd have no problems. Money alone is not a solution. Money is a tool, it's a resource. So to me, any policies that are helping empower people, giving people skills, the knowledge, the information, making it easier for people to access all of the resources that are available, to me, those types of policies are always intriguing. That's a deep question for me, because I can really go. I can nerd out on policy discussions. So, but I'll leave it right there.
Yeah. Let's shift gear and talk about a bill that was passed in April 2023 by Texas State Senator Phil King. He introduced a bill requiring public schools to display the Ten Commandments in every classroom. The bill passed the Senate but sparked a nationwide debate about the role of religion in public education. What's your opinion, Bishop Kevin, on that kind of legislation? And more broadly, how should we think about the presence of faith in public schools?
Yeah. Interesting. So I'll back up. We introduced a piece of initiative that would go on the ballot in Colorado that would have created we just call it a 5-minute period in a school day to give kids an opportunity to, if they wanted to pray, if they wanted to sit there and do nothing, whatever. It was really more of a reflective period. Kids get to school, it's bam, 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 bam. And it wasn't overtly religious or non-religious. It was, this is this time. The news got a hold of that before the state approved us to go to the next stage, and the news got a hold of that. And the response we got really blew my mind, but it showed me a lot. I learned a lot. We got death threats. I got death threats. I got people who were threatening, we're going to burn the building down. We're going to come and we're going to picket. We're going to do this. And it was crazy. And a lot of the negativity came from people, and they were unapologetic teachers. It came from people who were self-professed Christians. And then you had people on the opposite end of the spectrum. You had atheists, agnostics. And I learned a lot. I said, everybody gets mad about things they don't know anything about. And sometimes it is this confusion that creates this conflation of inflammation. And I say that to then fast forward to your question. Do I think that morality can be legislated? No. Do I think that putting the Ten Commandments in schools is going to improve school performance? I would say, show me the data that suggests that. I am a Christian, unapologetic. However, everybody may not be, and that's okay. So for me personally, my view on that is you can't legislate morality. And then here's the comma. The comma to that is then when you have other policies in play that seem to be antithetical to the morality that you want to impose on people, it creates this hypocritical quandary of confusion. Like, well, what are you talking about? So at the same time, you want everybody to, pay attention and know the Ten Commandments. At the same time, you've got a failing educational system. You got failing healthcare. You've got
right.
So what is it? So what is it? Because okay, you want us to believe in your God, great. But then why are you doing this to us on this flip side? So I think there's too much hypocrisy in that, quite frankly. And I think the reality is you can't legislate morality. I don't think that's a good way to approach it. At the same time, I understand why some think that is a good way. And here's what I say. Let your policies do your preaching. That's what I believe. Let your policies that are, and again, nothing's going to be perfect, but show how you're improving the lives of people. I think a lot of times when we talk about policy and government stuff, it's our money. It's taxpayer money. It's not the government's money. It's our money. And so I think show people, let your policies do your preaching. I'm not a big fan of trying to legislate morality. And I don't think that when you force anything on anybody that they're going to receive it well.
Yeah. Because I remember my two boys, they never ever liked the religion class at school because it was forced. They hated it, Bishop Kevin. And on that, how can we involve youth in faith without making it seem institutional.
Oh, I love it. I think that's just it. You give the opportunity to expose to the information, to expose to the value of it, and then let people go through that journey on their own. There's a scripture that says, train up a child in the way they should go. When they grow old, they won't depart from it. Which means I think instilling the values, exposing to the value of belief and faith and God and church, all that is a good thing. But again, I think it's that force thing. I'm the same way. You force me to do something. I don't want to do it just because you forced me to do it. That's the reason I don't want to do it. But when you expose me to something that can improve my life, that can improve my health, that can, back to your 360 question. And that's how I view Christianity. I don't view it as religion. I view it as these are principles that will improve every aspect of your life. And for the things you can't change, those things were sent to change you. When you present it that way, who wouldn't want that? But I think when you present it as you better do this, or you going to hell, you better do this, or you're a horrible person, work. You better do this. That's just not going to work. It doesn't work for anybody. It doesn't work for anybody.
Have you seen a model or a best practice that works in balancing church, school, and community?
Yeah, I would say the model I lived, which was, I was exposed to church. And once I was exposed to it and I saw all of the value and the benefit and relationship with God, when I saw the benefit of all of that, I wanted to do that. I had an affinity towards it. You didn't have to ask me to go. I went willingly. That's why at Harvest, we reach people of every age group. But we have a lot of people who aren't, again, unchurched, de-churched, who are younger people who love it, who want to be involved, who've never been in a building, but they're watching it at home. They're telling their mom, you got to come watch Bishop. Mom, you got to come watch Bishop. Why? Because we're presenting it in such a way where you can receive it, you can use it in your life. We're not kicking you because you made a mistake. We're not beating you down because we've all made mistakes. And I think the model of my life is an example of that. I'm as passionate as I am, not because it was forced on me. I was exposed to it, and I saw the benefit, and I saw the value. When I saw that, it was a game changer for me.
Yeah. You lost 95 pounds. That's serious.
Yeah. It's actually more of like 120 now, but 95 up front.
Okay. Still, yeah. What made you start the journey?
I was, we went on a 21-day, what was called Daniel fast. And that basically is, fruits and vegetables. And at the end of the fast, I said, I'm getting home. I would do 2 Sunday services, 9:15, 11:15, because we were growing at a very rapid rate. And I would do the 2 services. And after I do the 2 services, I would literally go home, eat, and go to sleep. And I said, this is not good. My travel schedule was such that I would eat really late and normally eat really bad. And I said, I got to do something different. So you want to know what I did? I actually prayed for a strategy. I said, God, you have to give me a strategy. I tried everything: slim slow, slim fast, protein power, Atkins, eat all the carbs you want, don't eat any carbs. We created a sports football league. So for the church, so a church football league. So we would do football games. Like, okay, if I can get back out on the field and, all of that, that'll be good. I tried all of these different things. None of it worked. I said, okay, I need a divine strategy. And as crazy as it may sound, that's exactly what I got. That afternoon, I went home. I was on Netflix. I watched this documentary. I can't even tell you the name of it because it's almost like it was there that day, and I've never been able to find it since then. Watched the documentary about fast food, and it's not the one that most people think of, the guy that was eating McDonald's every day. It's not that, but it was about fast food and how a lot of the different foods that I thought were healthy weren't healthy, how they metabolize in the brain. Long story short, that night, I made a commitment, just like that. I said, I'm going to have one more platter. And I said, after this, I'm going cold turkey. And I made some crazy changes instantaneously. Stopped eating fast food. Stopped eating after 6 p.m. before intermittent fasting was like a fad and a thing. I changed my diet, and I lost the first 75 pounds in 3 months. I didn't even know that I was losing weight because we've been very casual going into that spring and summer. So I had to speak at a leadership event one day. And as I'm speaking at the leadership event, I have to wear a suit. And so I go to put on the suit. And I got mad at my assistant. I said, "What did you do?" I said, "You've got me in somebody else's, clothes. The suit's falling off of me. The jacket's too big." He said, "Sir, that is your suit." I said, "No, it's not." And I was so mad. I still have a picture of that day. I was in that
Yeah.
leadership gathering because you can see the clothes are just swimming on me. And I said, "Let's get a scale." So we're driving back. It was in the mountains in Denver and Vail. We're driving back. As we're driving back, I get a scale and I'm like, "I just lost 75 pounds." I said, "I don't even know I lost 75 pounds." I said, "Whoa." And so then another 20 put me in 95 in 4 months. And then over time, it's a total of 120 pounds of fat lost. And of course, now I'm bulking and sculpting and doing all of that. I'm not bulking, but sculpting and what have you. But super active. 7 days a week, I'm doing something. There's not a day that I'm not physically active.
Yeah.
And it really was. I pray for divine strategy. I know that may sound crazy, but listen, I believe what I preach, and I literally, it was just a strategy I followed. In fact, I did a whole webinar that people, it's on our website, bishopforeman.com, but I did a whole webinar to walk people through, these are the things that I did, and it worked for me. And what's so cool about it is now hundreds of people looking at my example said, "I'm going to take my own journey." So we've had people who have lost 100, 150, 200 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds,
Wow.
who just
Wow.
used me as an example. Back to that 360 that you brought up,
Yeah.
used me as an example and said, "Okay, he's my inspiration." And that was one of the most exciting things for men and women that come up to me and say, "Bishop Foreman, you're my inspiration. I started doing what you said. I took your webinar. I'm going to start doing what you said. And I've lost 30 pounds and I've lost this, and they're offered diabetes medicine, and their sicknesses are going away." It was really encouraging. Still encouraging. People still do
Yeah.
it.
Fantastic. You turn the personal goal to a movement.
Yeah,
Excellent.
That's what we call it. Fit harvest. That's what we call it.
Yeah.
We started doing workout classes on Monday nights. We would do workout classes and things like that. And actually, we're getting ready to redo that because I've been asked by a lot of people that same question all the time. Whenever I post an old picture of me, people are like, "Who's that guy? Who's he?" Like, "That's me." They're like, "There's no way. That's like two of you." And the reality is it kind of is almost like two of me, but it really, it's something that people love, and we're getting ready to do that.
And for folks out there listening to this episode, is it a rocket science to lose weight?
I don't think it's rocket science at all. I think it's the same things we're talking about: faith, grit, leadership, leading you, the grit to not go back to your old ways of eating, because most of fitness is diet. You can't out-train a bad diet. I don't care how much you exercise, how much you do this, if you're taking in bad stuff, even from sports performers. If you're taking in bad, it's going to diminish your ability to perform. And faith, what is faith? It's the substance of things hoped for, evidence of things not seen, which means there's a me that I see that's not the me that I am. So I got to believe that me is coming into my life. It's right there. It's not rocket science at all.
And I think it keeps you grounded. It keeps you away from, keeps you focused, put it this way. And it gives you a purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. I agree with that.
Yeah. How do you see your work scaling beyond Denver and the U.S.?
I think what we're really doing now is, with our digital reach, people are connecting everywhere, from Canada, South Africa, Asia, Australia, South America. It blows my mind when we see the data of how many people are connected and are all literally all around the world. I was just in Toronto, which isn't too far from, just up the street, so to speak, from America. But point is, I was just there speaking, and I was shocked by the number of people who said, "Oh my God, I follow you. Oh my God, I follow you. Oh my God, I'm connected. Oh my God, I'm connected." And it wasn't even our event. It was another event. So I really see the digital is the way that we continue to expand and continue to grow. And I think from those digital reaches, we'll go to these cities, we'll do events and connect with people because, again, of social media and digital technology. We can be connected to everybody, everywhere, all the time. We've begun doing things like translating the messages into different languages so that people, whatever their language is, they just pick it, and in real time, while I'm speaking, it changes into their language. So now the language barrier is gone. So it's an exciting time. And I think it's just more of doing what we are doing.
Yeah. What connects your story to audiences in places like Sweden and Scandinavian countries where sports, innovation, and faith intersects differently?
I think the humanity of it. Back to what we talked about. I think when you look at the human experience, regardless of whether you're what your race is, your ethnicity, your background, your country of origin, we are all humans. And at the end of the day, that human experience is universal. We all are ultimately in pursuit. As the Maslow's hierarchy goes, we're all ultimately in pursuit of those same things. And so I think my story is a human story. It's nuanced because of where I grew up, because of where I came from, because of some of the background, but it's the human story that I think everybody can relate to. And I think, when you really look at the construct of sports, one of the things that you can tell, I love watching here in Atlanta, they just had a lot of the, one of the World Cup, some of those types of events and what have you. And it was so cool because, in American football, obviously different than football in other places. And it was so cool because one of the things that everybody that loves any sport has in common is we know how to shout and we know how to cheer and we know when our team's winning. And so at the gym, they've got all these games that are up because there's a bunch of different games and things happening here and what have you. And seeing that and seeing guys in there. So I was able to pick it up pretty fast. I was like, okay, boom, you got the, I was able to pick it up pretty fast. So, but it's just a human experience. We all know how to celebrate when our team is winning. And I think from a human standpoint, it's everybody's time to win.
Yeah. What's next for you, Bishop Kevin?
That's such a good question. So we got a book coming out that I've been working on called History Makers. Yes. So we've got several books that I've done. One's called Sins of the Fathers, Breaking Generational Curses, basically patterns of behavior that you become the interruption to. I'm the first bishop in my bloodline, first pastor in my bloodline, first PhD in my bloodline, first to achieve certain levels of financial achievement. You go down the list. And so that's what a curse breaker is. You're the first to do it. And so that book's out. We've got another book called Evolutionaries, Unlocking the You, the new you that's in you, which I kind of made reference to. Evolution is cool because evolution says I can never go back to what I was. The butterfly can never go back to being a caterpillar again. Very different than change or revolution. Revolution is change, but it doesn't mean for the better. Evolution, you can never go back to being what you were. There's another book we did, The Art of Getting Your Finances in Order, Making Money Moves, how do you be a good steward of your resources. But the one I'm excited about now is the project we're working on called History Makers, which will release in fall of 2025. And we'll do a song with it because my musical background, we've got it out. We got some music that's going to go with it. And that's exciting. We're launching the location here in Atlanta, which is exciting. And then we're really ramping up our online presence in a really major way. That's super exciting also. Because we've, as you mentioned, 700,000 plus. My goal before 2025 is out is to see well over that number hit well over 1 million. But for us, we really want to scale that pretty significantly. So there's that. And I'm still a single man. And so, hey, I am, and that's been by design. That's been by design for me. So I'm looking forward to seeing that change and what have you. So lots of great things ahead.
I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Likewise.
Yeah. You are listening to the Pre-Zero Sports Talk. For more conversations on sports leadership, faith, performance, and innovation from Sweden to the world, visit prezerosportstalk.com. Now it's time for our lightning round.
Let's go.
Ready for speedy Q&A?
I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
Let's do this. What's your favorite scripture at the moment?
Romans 8:28. All things work together for the good of them that love him.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
I'm an afternoon person. Right. Not early morning or
what
night
does that
owl.
mean?
I'm like
5
midday.
o'clock you have, it's a tea time or?
Right. Like midday.
Midday, yeah. What's the last book you finished?
Steve Jobs' biography was the last book that I finished.
Which one?
Extremely long. But Steve Jobs' biography, I learned so much about how he built Apple, his journey, his story. some of his last dying moments. It was amazing.
Yeah. Just hold on. Since you're talking about Steve, hold on.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it this one?
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
And you see how thick that book is. See how thick it is. Yes.
Read it twice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
it.
it's
I
a
like doing the
fantastic
audio
book.
versions because I can do it while I'm exercising and everything like that. But yes, that was an amazing read.
Yeah. I fully agree. One word that describes your leadership style.
Evolving. Evolving. I'm not who I was. And tomorrow I won't be who I am today. I'll be better.
Yeah. Guilty pleasure snack.
Oh. This is going to sound crazy. Peanut butter, crunchy organic peanut butter with banana and raisins.
Oi.
All together in one bowl. That is my guilty. I know it's crazy. That's my guilty pleasure.
Wow. A country you haven't visited but want to.
South Africa. South Africa is top of my list. I'm super excited to go there. I'll be there later this year. I'm excited about that.
What's one skill you're still learning?
This is good. Playing the guitar. I know I play a bunch of other instruments. The guitar, it's the fingerings that were always pretty dynamic for me to jump into. The musical part was easy. It's the fingerings that was a little bit more involved. So playing the guitar, it's something it's on my list to get done. That and learning Spanish.
If you could have a dinner with a historical figure, who will it be and why?
Oof. Oh, okay. All right, it's lightning rounds. Let me answer quickly. If I could have dinner with a historical figure, I'm going to say that would be, and this is going to sound somewhat cliche, but I'm going to say it would be Jesus, but not for the cliche reasons of it. I would want to dig into the nitty gritty of how in 3.5 years he changed the world. I want to get into the nitty gritty of the leadership, the nitty gritty of how did you deal with Judas and how did you deal with this and how did you deal with that? So I would want to get into the nitty gritty, not even from just the spiritual aspects, but I want to get into the nitty gritty of how he did what he did in a short amount of time.
Yeah. Interesting. Really interesting. Yeah. One thing I would ask is how deep or how sincere or how realistic, because we are humans, and when he said, love your neighbor, and when we think about it, all the conflicts, the wars and things like that, because conflict between neighbor countries and stuff like that. Yeah. And we still have that issue today.
Yeah, true. Very true. Very true.
And lastly, a piece of advice or wisdom to the listeners on any topic.
You know what? Here's what I would say. You are not your trauma. You are not your drama. You are not what you've been through. You're a shapeshifter, history maker, world changer, line crosser. Bible says, as a man thinks, so is he. So we get your thoughts to align with where you want to be. That's what you're going to become. So I would say to everybody, your greatest days are not behind you. They are here and they are ahead of you. And you may have had some great accomplishments, but you're not in your sunset. You're in your come up. You're in your best days of your life, whether that's in your 20s, your teens, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, 60s, 70s, wherever you're at, it's the perfect time to be you.
Great. And on that hopeful note, Bishop Kevin, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I enjoyed my time. Thanks for having me.
And for our listeners, as a closing thoughts, I'm reminded of a quote of the one and only Coach John Wooden. The true test of a man's character is what he does when no one is watching. The spirit was clear in today's conversation. Leadership, even when unseen, still leaves a mark. We want to thank you for joining our show. If you enjoyed this episode, we have more for you. You can now watch the entire episode on our YouTube and Spotify channels. While you're here, subscribe and don't forget to tap the bell. Visit prezerosportstalk.com to explore more conversations on sports, leadership, faith, performance, and innovation. From Sweden to the world. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and make a difference. We'll see you soon. Take care.